I'm just showing some slides of a couple of trips we managed to do this summer despite the problems with the ban on traveling in the woods. So the first hike we did, which you see the Maleberry, which was the middle of July, that we just squeaked in under before they had made the call, so we didn't have the problem with going out into the woods for this one. And this, if you're not familiar with it, this is in the huckleberry family or in uh, the vaccinium family, like blueberries and calmia and all those sort of things. Um, and this is very much like a huckleberry, except that the seeds are a capsule; they're not a berry. And this is a plant that grows, along the sort of mid-central eastern U.S., but is not known in Canada except for this one instance in South-West Nova Scotia, where I think there's maybe about 8 plants or so. I'm not sure the exact number, but there's a few of them growing in this one little area off the side of a trail. No idea why here. Nothing seems to be particularly special. No idea how it got there. Definitely not anywhere near any sort of gardens or civilization. I'm guessing it may be a bird brought in a seed or something, or it's just what's left of a remnant of a population from thousands of years ago, and this is all that's left. There's no way of knowing. But it does have a fascinating flower. The flower is almost like a white blueberry. Um, it's hollow inside. And there, it's a little better. So you can see it actually has a little bit of pubescence on the flower as well, but it's hollow with the floral parts inside. And that's sort of what it looks like from a distance. So it really doesn't particularly catch your eye. And if you look carefully, that's the flower. So they're not very big. Um, so it's amazing that this plant was even found, to be honest. And on the trip, I got into sedges this summer, so we found some interesting sedges. So the button sedge, which looks a lot like the um, Carex lucida, which is more common, but the awns are different on it. Swan sedge, that one's quite unusual, pretty rare. I think Jim Jottram is one that found that one. Um, Silvery flowered sedge, that's one that I had misidentified, and Sean Blaney corrected me on that. And there's a number of sedges that type of shape that are very similar. Um, that one was, where was it? It was just off the side of a road, I think. And the drooping wood sedge, Carex arctata. So it gives you an idea of some of the variation you see with the sedges. Also, this was again mid-July, so we went out and saw. So we were scouting for the trip we were planning to have later, and went to this is near Argyle, a known site of the groundsel trees. And as you can see, they're just starting to form buds there. Some other Southwest Nova Scotia, like Atlantic coastal plain Flora plants that we saw. The Eastern Liliopsis, which is oddly enough related to carrots. It's in the Apiaceae family, and it grows right in the brackish water along the shore. American three square bulrush, that was right beside the Baccharis. And pale green orchid, Plantathera flava, that's something we saw up at Wilson's Lake, along with the Sabbatia, the Plymouth gentians. I'll show you in a second. So again, scouting out early in the year, I wanted to find the rose coreopsis in sort of mid-August. So this is again early July. So the rose coreopsis was there, but it was just starting to open a few buds. It wasn't blooming yet. And this is the Plymouth gentian, which the bottom right you'll see is that's the common, that's what you normally will see for a Plymouth gentian, but for the first time this year, I saw a white one. And these were at Wilson's Lake. And it was covered in Plymouth gentians this past year. I guess with the drought, the water level had dropped, but that allowed them to grow more into the lowland or something. I don't really know why, but for some reason they were just really flowering profusely. And I was thinking, oh, this will be great. I hope they hang in there for our August trip. Of course, it never happened. We weren't able to even get there to have a look at it. So then this is what became of our August trip. So because of the fire ban, we really, or not the ban on travel rather, um, the only real option we can come up with was to go into Keji. Keji being federal territory was not subject to the provincial travel ban, but within Keji there was a lot of restrictions as well. There's only three areas that they allowed people to travel to. So we got our group together to see what we could of the South-West Nova Scotia flora at in Keji. And as you can see, the signs of the drought were pretty obvious. A lot of these wetland plants were just high and dry, but they were thriving. Like thing was, or at least living, if not thriving. And that's what was interesting is I think the water table was still close enough that they could somehow reach down with their roots and get enough moisture to keep going, even though they were struggling. And so you see the pipewort, which you normally would see in the water itself. The same thing with the pickleweed. The yellow-eyed grass would normally be on the shore right nearby. Same thing with the water parsnip, and water lobelia would have been in the water, and the bayonet rush much the same. It's both in and out of the water. The plant I was particularly interested to see was the marsh pennywort, and we saw quite a bit of it, and it in fact seemed to be doing quite well. We saw lots of it, and it was blooming, which is something it's often doesn't bloom. It's very sporadic in its blooming, but these ones were blooming. Now, one of the things that was curious, so when we saw them, and this I think might have been due to the heat of the day and how dry it was, is the leaves were being held upright at an angle. Um, and I'm wondering if that's just to keep it from overheating, that it didn't want to take the sun head on, but it was instead tilting the leaf so that it was only getting a sideways exposure. I don't really know, but it was interesting. I'd never seen it behaving that way before. And this is just some of the grasses and rushes we saw. So that what you could see of the shoreline showed the very clear demarcation of the different vegetation types. So we had the bayonet rush was running right to the edge of the water, and that normally would have been underwater, but it was still, and that's probably why it's looking reddish, is because it's kind of high and dry. And then directly behind that is a smooth sawgrass, the Cladium mariscoides, which is a Atlantic coastal plains flora plant. And behind that was Canada blue joint. You can see that sort of green, thin green area there. That's the, oops, sorry. There we go. That's the Canada blue joint there. And then behind it was switchgrass, Panicum virgatum. And I think that's huckleberry back there. I can't remember for sure. But it was very interesting how clearly demarked the various zones are coming up from the lake. And we did see some things flowering. So here's some examples. So one of the things was a lesser spearwort, which is a very small buttercup with these long, elongated leaves. And that's the flower there. Your eastern blue-eyed grass, but this one is the Atlantic version of so again, it's the Atlantic coastal plain flora version. Virginia meadow beauty. Didn't see much of that. That's something that I don't think did well with the drought, but I did see one in bloom there. Groundnut, that is that's a plant that the Mi'kmaq use for food. It actually has little tubers. That's why the name groundnut. And it's a vining plant in the Fabaceae, the bean family. and a one of the native St. John's worts, northern St. John's wort, Hypericum boreal. Also saw a golden hedge hyssop. So they were kind of sporadic, but they seem to be blooming well. The pressed bog club moss. Um, it also seemed to be hanging in there despite the drought. And the slender golden top, that's the Atlantic coastal plains Flora goldenrod that grows in the shallows as well. So that was blooming as well. So I mean, the plant, despite the drought, the um, the plants seem to be getting enough moisture by the side of the lake, even though the lake level was down quite a bit. They still seem to be hanging in there. Then we went up to Mill Falls, and that is all of Mill Falls that was running. Barely any water whatsoever was running through the falls. But it did reveal some of the some of the bryophytes there. The ribbonwort, which is that's there. You can see up there in the corner. That is a liverwort that was growing on, would normally have been underwater. And then the cup water moss. This is a moss that is in a it grows underwater normally, so you normally wouldn't see it as easily. And this was all high and dry. It was still seemed to have some moisture to it, um, but clearly it was suffering in the drought. That's all I got.